Isaako! For the line, he's in. Brisbane go back to back. Well worked try. The Broncos go in again.
Born and raised on the east coast of the South Island in New Zealand, Christchurch. I grew up in a family of 6. I had 3 younger brothers and an older half-sister. Family life was always pretty tight in our household. My dad was working a full-time job and mum was in and out of work, so we were only really surviving week to week, really. Yeah, that was the toughest thing growing up, was financially not being stable. We were always moving in and out with my grandparents. So yeah, they sort of raised me a little bit. Cronulla had a trial in Christchurch where one of my cousins and a couple of my mates were playing in, and I just happened to go down there to have a look, and they needed trialists to play in the trial, so I jumped in the trial, and one of the recruitment officers gave me a tap on the back and was like, "Oh, how would you like to come to Sydney for another trial?" Ended up getting a contract for SG Ball. Sat down with my dad and he said it would be a good opportunity for me to sort of come over here and I guess learn more.
Isaako on the spot at the right time, and the chase from Jamayne Isaako led to a try for Cronulla.
For me to make that decision was, based on being a less mouth in the house to feed for my parents. So I made that decision to move over here, and it was a really tough decision at the time, but it was one that had to be made. I was there for about 4 years, played most of my 20s there before, I got homesick. I felt like the whole point of me going over to Sydney and to Cronulla was for me to be a less mouth for my parents to feed, but I was calling them every week for them to have to send me, money. Didn't really make sense, so I made the decision to leave. I was back home for about 11 months, and I remember I was working as a fencer, and I got a call from my manager, Jim Bannigan. Sort of just spoke to me about, what my plans and my moves were for, the future. And when my manager asked me that question, I was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm, back here doing nothing. It was a bit of a wake-up call for me, really. I sort of just said, what are the chances of me coming to the Broncos? He was like, "Oh, leave it to him. He'll speak to Wayne and see what he can sort out." I remember one of the questions he asked me was why I wanted to come to the club, and I just said I wanted to be a Bronco.
Lockyer takes the shot, it's low!
He's got it!
I think he's got it! He's got it!
He has!
I think Wayne went out on a limb to sort of sign me on a training trial contract again.
What did your dad say?
Oh, well, he obviously said it was better than being a fencer or better than working back home. He just said to chase my dreams. Just remember 2018 being a year where I didn't know what was going to happen the next year, so it was just, a do-or-die opportunity for me. I just wanted to, do the best that I possibly could.
Jamayne Isaako, who will start. So the premiership's underway. Has plenty of time.
Well, he's as cool as a cucumber, this kid.
Is he what?
I remember my dad always calling me every week. I got picked on the team. He was always so happy and just kept telling me how proud he was of me. And every time he goes to work, and his mates would always tell him, "Oh, that's your son playing on TV."
Jamayne Isaako will score! Wow! Jamayne Isaako has scored what might be the match winner!
I was living my dad's dream, I was living my brother's dreams, I was living my dream, really.
Away they come, they got them shot to bits, Isaako scores!
I'd missed a voice message from Madge. Yeah, when he told me the news that I was going to be playing for the Kiwis, that feeling was probably the best feeling in the world. And even being able to tell my dad that news and hearing my dad break down over the phone, I always wanted to hear, his reaction, the day that I told him that I was going to become one of those players. Going into 2019, receiving the news of my dad, who, had been diagnosed with cancer, was something that really messed me up. Sorry, bro. I always used to call my dad before I went to training. And I remember for a couple months straight, I couldn't even call him. I remember going to training sometimes and sitting in the car park just breaking down. In 2018, it was like the best time of my life. And then 2019, when, you know, I wanted to go back home, I wanted to quit footy and go look after my dad. He'd always tell me he didn't want me to go back home, or he didn't want the news of him having cancer be a reason why I quit footy. I really wanted to play for him that year, but at the same time, you know, my heart, just all of me wasn't really in footy that year. It sort of carried over into 2020 as well. My dad's condition was getting worse. You know, doctors kept telling us they didn't know how much longer he had to go, and to me it was like I was wasting so much time sort of being over here. You know, I could have been home looking after him and doing everything I possibly could to, you know, spend my dad's final days, you know, making memories. My dad passed away 2 days after we played the West Tigers, just a week after his 50th birthday. And I remember after the West Tigers game, it was fly in, fly out at the time because of COVID, and I asked, you know, whether they could get me home straight after the game just to be with my dad, because I didn't know whether or not he was going to make it through the weekend. And I remember sitting at home, and you know, my dad passed away on Monday, and a week and a half passed. I was still sitting here in Brizzy, not knowing whether or not I was going to make it home for his funeral. We finally managed to get onto a flight. It was a medical flight going from Australia to New Zealand. I think they only had it going once every fortnight, and we managed to get onto that flight. It almost nearly been a month since my dad had passed away, and you know, we still hadn't seen him. Not being able to go home straight away, or even for his last days, was one of the, you know, toughest things I've ever had to experience or go through in my life. I'm really grateful that I was able to get home and to send my dad off. So I sacrificed, you know, half the season to do all that because of the COVID period, but you know, I would have given up the whole season if I was able to fly back home and spend what was ultimately my dad's last few weeks, last few days on this earth. I asked myself, you know, what was one thing that I could do to sort of, you know, be reminded of him every day, and I always made a promise to myself that I was never going to get any tattoos on my body. I didn't like tattoos. I never liked tattoos, but I knew that if I got this on me, it was a constant reminder that, you know, my dad would always be with me. Having this is a reflection and a symbol of my dad and the man that he was and what he represented. You know, he was my hero and my best mate. Playing for the Brisbane Broncos and having the spotlight of the media always on you when you're not performing is, you know, something that can be really torturing sometimes, and no one knows the story that sort of went on during that time. You know, my mum and dad had a separation during his cancer, and I didn't have a relationship with my mother in that 2 years. I wanted to be closer to my dad, obviously because he was sick. Mum wasn't there during, you know, my dad's sick days. It sort of really affected me in a way that, you know, sort of tore our relationship. One thing that my dad told me was that he wanted me to have a relationship with my mum. He wanted me to look after her and do everything that I possibly could for my siblings, and you know, those were my dad's dying wishes. You know, to respect everything that my dad, you know, told me is something that I hold close to my heart. My mum lives with us now. You know, I've restored my relationship with her, and yeah, again, it's, you know, probably one of the best decisions that I've made to, you know, I guess let my mum back into my life and to have that relationship with her and her grandkids.
There you go. Ready?
Climb. Hold on. Hold on to the front. Yeah, it's been a life changer. Being a young dad of 2 has been the best part of my life, I think.
Is that too fast? Can I go faster?
Having kids has really opened up my perspective to life.
To me, there's nothing better than having your own children to make you happy or bring happiness out when there is sadness, which is what he had when his dad was unwell. Izzy at the time was sort of what kept him happy and put a smile on his face when nothing else really was.
Okay, be careful. Okay, ready?
Every time I look at Izzy, it reminds me of my dad. Like, my dad had a big heart and a really soft spot for him. I've got so many photos and memories of Izzy and my dad together that, I can't wait for him to sort of get to an age where I can, explain to him who my dad was. And I'm sure my dad's probably looking down at, over both of them, and I'm sure he's probably really proud of them too.
He's a great dad. Jamayne will always now play for his dad on the field, but also his kids.
Jump. Whoa. Okay. This way.
Yeah, when I look at them, they're my pride and joy, and every week when I run out onto the field, I run out for them, and want to be the best possible dad that I can be for them.
Jamayne Isaako dancing with them. He's tackled 5. Oh, he got through. They let him go. He stayed alive. Jamayne Isaako with the try.
That gives them hope.